Welcome to our YouTube channel. So in this video, we're going to unlock the secrets of using debt, yes debt, to buy rental properties. Now, in today's video, I'll show you how to use debt to grow your rental empire, and we'll identify and discuss the best financing options for you. And that way, you'll be able to be prepared for long-term success. But before we jump into it, let's talk about debt. And to be quite frank, it can be scary for some, right? Debt, in my opinion, is similar to a knife. Without proper training, it can take life if you use it like a crazy man, haphazardly, right? But if you use it with precision, like a trained surgeon, it can actually save life. It's all dependent upon proper training. So use debt to buy profitable rental units. Now, what is profit? Profit is the cash flow. That's the profit in your pocket. And cash flow is calculated as the following. Your rental income, minus your reserves for vacancies, for maintenance, minus your operating expenses, taxes, insurance, minus your debt services, your mortgage, funding, and that other things you use to acquire the property. And the rents to pay all those expenses, all that debt and reserve, and have profit left over for you. Now, there are some ways you can use debt to your advantage, and here's a few. One debt source that you can use is called a mortgage. So when you're buying an investment property with a mortgage, of course, every mortgage company has their own criteria, their own qualifications, but just to give you a blank slate, they typically do an 80% LTV. That's loan to value, meaning based upon the purchase price in which you acquire the property, most mortgage companies for investment mortgages will give you 80% of the money needed to acquire that property. 80%, which means you have to come up with the latter 20% to be able to close that deal. Now, when applying for a mortgage, let's say whether it's residential or commercial, either one can be an investment property, right? You can buy a single family property, that's a residential mortgage as an investment, and of course you can buy a 6-unit as an investment too, and that's a commercial mortgage. But the thing here is you have to understand their underwriting. When you're buying a residential mortgage, typically residential mortgage lenders, 80% of their underwriting, meaning qualifying you in the property for the mortgage, is based upon you. They want to take a look at your tax returns. They want to take a look at your income. In other words, your pay stubs, W-2s, all that stuff that's considered income to qualify you. And they want to take a look at your credit, which is a good indicator of how good of a borrower you are. And then they want to take a look at, the profitability of the property. So just to give it to you short and sweet, 80% of their focus is on you. Whether 20% of their focus or their underwriting, their qualifications, is on the property and the cash flow it produces. But when you jump into the commercial world and you do commercial mortgages, multifamily, 5 years and up, they turn that on its head, where 80% of their focus is on the property and the cash flow that it produces. They care about the performance of that asset, whereas the latter 20% is about you. So I don't want you to get the misconception that, if I go into commercial, they don't have to take a look at my credit. Well, it depends. If you have a credit partner, yes, they want to take a look at your credit, your income, and so forth. They still want to see who is this person requesting this mortgage, whether it's for a 6-unit, a 20-unit, a 50-unit. I still want to see who's the borrower and what qualification this person has. So if you're in that situation in which you may not have all the criteria personally, meaning you may not have the documented income or the tax returns, or your credit score may not be at 680 or higher, no worries. There are still investors out there like myself. At the time, now I'm good, but back then I remember I couldn't do a deal because I had losses on my tax returns because I just quit my 9-to-5, I quit my day job, and I filed a lot of losses on my taxes. And as a result, I couldn't qualify for any mortgages moving forward. And so my mortgage lender, since we had a really great relationship, she schooled me in the game. She said, all right, well, this is what you need to do. Get a credit partner, have them get some equity, and then I'll qualify them for the mortgage and not you. And you can just be just a general partner, and we only need to take a look at your credit, your tax returns, and things like that. So there's some ways to work around it, but just to give you a short and sweet, Mortgage lenders, they want to take a look at three things. You, and when I say you, they're looking at your credit as well as your income. And they want to take a look at the performance of the property that you're buying to make sure that it is profitable cash flowing. Whether that's for residential or whether it's commercial, both hold true. It's just for residential, they care more about you, but commercial, they care more about the property. All right, so that's in depth of what I shared with you about mortgages. Now, that covers 80%. Now, if you do commercial, going back to commercial properties, you can also negotiate seller financing. So the LTV, the loan to value for seller financing, is 10%, which means the seller will be able or is allowed to fund 10% of the purchase price. Okay. And you might be thinking, well, why on earth, if a seller is selling his or her own property, also get financing for it? Well, who wouldn't want to make money off a property they no longer own? At this point, by them extending you as the borrower seller financing, they're still receiving cash flow, right? If you default on the loan, they can do a foreclosure. Even though they have a second lien position to the mortgage, they can still, if they decide to do so, foreclose on you if you don't pay the seller financing. So that opportunity is a good opportunity for the seller, just in case you default. And last, like I just said, who wouldn't want to make money off a property they no longer own, still receive interest income on financing, and they don't have to deal with any management, any headaches, anything that deals with managing property or the tenants. The key thing is understand the negotiations and to be able to communicate this to the seller that, hey, this is a huge advantage for you. This is a huge win for me, and I'm at risk, right? Because if I default, you get this property back and you only have 10% equity in the game, whereas I have 90%, right? Sure, a mortgage may cover a portion, but it's under my name or my partner's name, and I still got to come up with the other latter 10%. So I'm at risk here. So what we need to do is negotiate great terms so that way it's a win for you and it's a win for me. So seller financing is a great tool to use to really grow your rental portfolio. It's just the downside, it has to be commercial. You cannot use it for residential. Why? Because residential mortgage lenders, they don't allow it. Sure, if you're able to reach with a seller directly and say, hey, Mr. Seller, I want to be able to buy your property directly from you. There's no agent, there's no bank involved. Seller, you be the bank, then of course that's a different story. You can do more than 10% or whatever you negotiate. But what I'm sharing with you is if you're using seller financing in combination with a mortgage, then this is only allowable for commercial mortgages and they only allow 10% of the purchase price and no more. All right, let's share another capital stack. So all these things are called capital stacks, meaning how can you stack on the debt to acquire a property? So we talked about mortgages, we talked about seller financing. Another tool I like to use is private money. Now get it, you may be starting out, you may not have the proven track record. You might say, hey, Juan Pablo, no one wants to invest with me. No one wants to lend me money because I'm green, I'm wet behind the ears. Hey, join the club. I was in the same boat, the same situation as you. I call it the private money catch-22, meaning I needed their money to buy deals so I can gain the experience, but they're telling me, hey, you need to have the experience first before I give you my money to buy deals. Because if I give you my money for you to experiment with to buy deals, then it's kind of like I'm paying you to experiment. Like, what advantage do you have over me? The only advantage that I have over you is that I have the money, the credit, and you don't. Why would I give you my hard-earned cash, my savings from my retirement account or whatever they got the money from? Why would I give you all this money to someone who's experienced but behind the ears so you can experiment with my money? It was tough. So I realized, okay, I need to be able to find another source of capital to gain experience so that way I can have the proven track record to raise capital from these investors. But let me just share with you this because you might be in a different situation. In fact, you might be in a situation in which even though you do have some experience or do not have some experience, you might have a network of people. You might have a circle, right? And if so, then why not partner with them or get loans from them? You might be wondering, well, which one is best to do, a partnership or have them be a lender, a private lender. Hey, it really depends on what their wants are. If that person is somewhat skeptical and they want a guarantee of capital, they want a guarantee return, guarantee interest rate, then of course, if they want guarantees, you should always pitch private lender. Meaning, hey, how about you just limit this money? We'll do a promissory note. Everything will be, copacetic in regard to legalities. And what we'll do, we'll just go ahead and get this thing under contract, get it written up, and I'll pay you your X amount of money at X amount of time. You get your principal at Y date, and just leave it at that. But if the person is ambitious and it's telling you, hey, I want to be able to grow when the property grows, when the property increases in value, when the property increases in cash flow, when the property increases in profitability, I want to tap into that. Then that person, I would normally pitch, hey, be a partner with me. Okay, but I will also share with them, just like with the private lender, the risk involved, because it is investing. All right. Now, if you're in that situation in which you say, hey, Juan Pablo, I do have some experience, but I just don't have a circle. I'm just not able to. All right, well, if you don't have your circle, you just have to expand your circle. One of the things I used to do when I lived in the New York City area, shout out to my people in the Northeast, I used to go to alumni events for Ivy League schools, right? I would go to Columbia, I would go to NYU, and I would just network, and I would pass out my business card and share with people like, hey, I'm a real estate investor. And for those whose interest was piqued, oh, you're a real estate investor? I always want to invest in real estate. I would say, hey, you know what? You're just in luck. I have a teleconference. This is back then when we had that 1-800 free conference line, whatever it was called. And basically, I would do a free call once a week. And I will lead with education because I wanted them, my potential partners, right, my potential lenders, to be an educated consumer. And we'll do this for a while. It wouldn't be, oh, I'm a real estate investor. Let me get your number. Hey, I got this deal right now. You want a partner? No, but there's no pre-existing relationship. I want to build a relationship first. And I want to make sure they're educated. So then once they're ready, they all their questions answered, we went over deals. Then, hey, let's go ahead and do this thing. Let's partner, or you can be a lender. And so with the private money, as you can see with the math, we talked about if you're going to commercial, 80% mortgage, 10% seller financing. Private money, if you're doing residential, then a private money lender or private partner, they can do up to 20% or more, whatever you negotiate, of the purchase price. Or if you're using seller financing, where the mortgage covers 80%, the seller financing covers 10%, then the private money can cover the latter 10%. It's that simple. All right, now the last capital stack that I'd like to share with you so you could build your rental portfolio is business funding. So going back to the private money, I mentioned my journey that I had a difficult time getting partners or lenders to invest with me. And the main reason being is because I lacked the experience. So I shared, okay, well, I need to get the experience. So if I get the experience and I continue to network, I could potentially raise capital. How can I get capital now so I can gain the experience? And that's when I started using business funding. So I applied for business funding, and I had a 680 credit score at the time. I had a few blemishes on my credit report, meaning some collections, some late pays, high debt utilization. So I wasn't the ideal client whatsoever. However, I had a winner's mindset, open-minded, optimistic, to the point I said to myself, the least I can do is apply. It's free consultation. Whether if I lose, then fine. At least I know exactly what I need to do to get qualified. But who knows? Maybe I might get funded. And to my surprise, I actually was qualified for funding, even with those blemishes on my credit report. I didn't get the max amount of funding that I desired. However, I got $10,000, and that was the start. To the point I began to repeat the process over and over and over, to the point I received over 40 business funding cards and over $400,000 in business credit cards, business lines of credit, and so forth. To the point I can use this funding to acquire properties, gain the credibility, and also reach out to private money to get access to more money. Because that's the goal, right? You want to be able to have multiple tools in your tool belt. You want to have maximum capital at your disposal. So you want to be able to have capital that you can use or debt that you can use to acquire property from business funding, whether it's credit cards or lines of credit, from your circle, whether it's lenders or whether it's partners. Also, you want to get it from seller financing. You can negotiate it from a mortgage, have multiple mortgage companies. So you can stack all this debt together to acquire properties, to buy properties on a repeatable basis. And now that's you. If you say, you know what, Juan Pablo, I need to get my proven track record. So I need to acquire some properties first. So that may mean I need to get my hands on some additional capital, some funding. Excellent. Just make sure you apply. Now, I don't care if your credit's not squeaky clean, cool. Just apply to see what your chances are. This is one thing you want to remember. It's important to analyze cash flow and risk when buying rentals. Also, after you buy, you want to make the rental more profitable. That's what it's all about ownership. You buy an asset, how can I make it more profitable? You increase the rents, you decrease expenses. That impacts your cash flow and overall valuation of the property. Now, keep in mind, using debt to buy rentals requires training. Remember that surgeon example I used, the analogy. Because without it, using debt can be scary. It can kill a deal if you do it incorrectly. So with proper training, debt can help you buy rentals on a repeatable basis. The goal is financial freedom here, where your rental income exceeds your living expenses. Then you can say goodbye to the 9 to 5 and quit your day job. So if you're a beginner, or let's say you're an experienced investor and you want to entertain the usage of debt, you can use it for residential or commercial properties, but you want to make sure you use it right with proper training. So question for you, do you want to stay updated on real estate, funding, and wealth? Then subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, and we will empower you to take control of your financial goals. Also, we'll help you to master the world of real estate investing. So thank you so much for watching our YouTube channel, for watching this video. And remember to give it a thumbs up and check the link below in the description so that way you can get your hands on some free training on how you can leverage your real estate portfolio by using debt, aka creative financing, aka that capital stack. And make sure you leave your comments below as well if you're down there with this description, because we love engaging with our viewers. As always, guys, to your success, continue to earn passively, live passionately. Take care. Peace.